Welcome to Impact News, your edition this week. Folks, environmental racism is poisoning America's waters and her black and brown residents. Folks, the United States has the largest gross domestic product globally. So why are poor and working class people, and in particularly black and brown people, denied the fundamental right to clean water? We know the answer, folks. It's racism, folks. In New York, the New York City Housing Authority was alerted about cloudy water conditions at the Jacob Riis Public Housing Complex and found arsenic in the water. Folks, in Baltimore and the surrounding southwestern Baltimore County, water tested positive for E. coli in September. Folks, the neighborhood of Sandtown, Winchester, Harlem Park is 96.7% black within the 62.8% black city of Baltimore. Folks, Jackson, Mississippi was under a boil water notice from July 29th to September 15th. And folks, from August 30th to September 5th, you should know the water stopped running. Yeah, think about that. What are you going to do if your water stops running? The water stopped running for many of Jackson's more than 150,000 residents, folks, leaving public schools, okay, public spaces and like schools, folks, without running water. Come on now. You know that it doesn't make any sense. They didn't have any water pressure. They didn't have any running sinks. They didn't have any working toilets, folks. Although water pressure has now been restored, the water remains contaminated. And yes, you know the rest of the story. Jackson is 82.5% black. Folks, the majority black city of Flint, Michigan, you know this story. It made headlines in 2016 when it was revealed that for 2 years, and therefore we know it was longer, the state government had been covering up the fact that residents were actively being poisoned by lead in their water supply. Folks, in 2010, the United Nations General Assembly recognized the right to safe and clean drinking water and sanitation as a human right that is essential for the full enjoyment of life and all human rights. That was in 2010. 12 years later, this is what we're still dealing with. Folks, America owes black and brown, poor and working class people clean water. Vote like your life depends on it, because actually it does. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Stay with me. I'll be back with more. And here are your stories from around the neighborhood and all around the world, starting, folks, with your headlines. A new effort looks to register 10 million new black voters. Plus, why is Georgia so intent on voter suppression? We've got some news on that. Then perms, folks, they can lead to cancer. Do not perm your hair. Also, babies born to black mothers who use fertility treatments are dying at higher rates than those born to white moms. Gun control laws are being struck down like crazy. It's scary. Also, thanks to global warming and the hotness of the ocean is getting deeper into the ocean, and that's a real problem. Plus, in international news, Brazil is struggling to contain misinformation. And in health news, our final week on breast cancer prevention. Stay with me. The Votercade bus tour is underway, folks, with the goal of 10 million more black voters by midterms, folks. That's the goal of the Transformative Justice Coalition, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, the Hip Hop Caucus, Rainbow Push, and others, folks. They are trying to blunt the impact of voter suppression, and they need your help. You must register and vote. The Votercade is going to 25 cities, starting with Milwaukee and Minneapolis. Organizers want you to know this: democracy is on the ballot on November 8th, as are racial justice, climate justice, environmental justice, economic justice, and equity. Everything for us is on the line. Vote. All right, during the Votercade, you can register to vote, check your voting eligibility while enjoying some good food, music, games, and here's the real killer: ban books, folks. That's right, all our good books by all our good writers. You know, they're trying to ban them. You better vote. We need you. Okay, let's move on. What will happen in the Georgia election? Folks, Georgia has done everything it can to suppress the black vote. For the last 20 years, Georgia has seen a shift in its state politics, folks. That's because black Americans have moved back south since 2000, and they tend to vote Democratic. Today, black voters account for half of the state's 1.9 million increase, people, in eligible voters between 2000 and 2019. So they're trying to suppress that. And here's their history. In 1868, black citizens were 44% of Georgia's population, and voting age men, you should know, outnumbered white men in 65 of Georgia's 137 counties. So what did whites do? What they tend to do, these white supremacists, they responded by forcibly replacing black elected school board members with white Georgians selected by all white grand juries, by imposing strict vacancy laws, which of course led to convictions of black men who were then criminalized and then of course unable to vote. The vagrancy laws were on, the convictions were on vagrancy. How nebulous that is. A pattern of violence against black elected officials. You remember, you've read about that in your history books. Hopefully you'll still remember if they don't stop banning these books, you better vote. A pattern of violence against black elected officials continued throughout the early 20th century. And you should know this, from 1908 to 1962, no black Georgian held a seat in the state legislature. None, not a single one. Jim Crow was so successful that black turnout in Georgia for presidential elections fell, get this, from 42% in 1880 to 33% in 1892. You ready for this? To 7% in 1900. And folks, it didn't stop there, to 2% in 1912. Georgia must be stopped. You must vote. We need you. All right, let's move on. Let's look at our black women. A new study says that chemical hair straighteners are making a comeback. All right now. Okay, just as a new study links relaxers to uterine cancer. That's because the perms contain chemicals with endocrine disrupting and carcinogenic properties. Who's surprised about that? And it's not just uterine cancer, folks. It's also believed that perms come with a higher risk of breast and ovarian cancer. The study involved nearly 34,000 participants, and each one was between the ages of 35 and 74. They had at least one sister diagnosed with cancer, all right? It showed that the risk of developing uterine cancer for frequent users of relaxers is 4% compared to 1.6% for women who've never used hair straightening products. And that's not all, okay? Uterine cancer is very, very rare, but it is the most common cancer of the female reproductive system. Researchers observed an 80% higher risk of uterine cancer among participants who used hair straightening products, with the risk more than double for women who use the products more than 4 times in the previous year. You can't use those perms. You got to go natural. Do whatever you're going to do. Get your braids, go natural, whatever you're going to do. Dread, I don't care what it is. Don't use those perms. Okay. A new study says babies born to black mothers who use fertility treatments are dying at higher rates than those born to white mothers. Babies born to black mothers are twice as likely to die in the first month than infants born to white women, okay? But when IVF is involved, that death rate rises to 4 times higher among newborns up to 28 days old who were born to black mothers. Now, Dr. Madeline Sutton is an OBGYN in Atlanta. She says racism plays a role because black women tend to be refused extra tests, we know that, or treatments, and referred less frequently to specialists, and their health concerns are dismissed. Overall, black women are 3 times more likely than white women to die from pregnancy-related issues and twice as likely to have stillbirths or preterm births than white women, and this, of course, is according to the study. Let's turn to your gun control laws. Folks, they are being struck down and deaths are rising. Who's surprised about that? This summer, the Supreme Court ruled in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin. They made the ruling about the guns. Now, as a result, judges in various parts of the country now have said it is unconstitutional to ban guns that lack serial numbers. So stupid. It's also unconstitutional, so say the judges, to prevent people under felony indictment from buying guns and to prohibit guns from airports and even summer camps. These people are brain dead. They're not going to stop until they destroy the entire society. And then they'll say, how did that happen? We have to have smart people in charge who can think things through, folks. These are not the people running things. You must vote. All right, meanwhile, a federal judge barred the state of New York from enforcing the part of the gun law, are you ready for this, that bans firearms from churches and other places of worship. Come on now. We are smarter than that. We have to be. We are smarter than that. All right, let's turn to the climate. And everywhere you turn, they've been running things, and everywhere you turn, there's a problem. Looking at the climate, these are the white nationalists that are trying to really run everything. They got to go. Looking at the climate and specifically the ocean, the amount of ocean heat is accelerating and fueling these extreme weather events. And that's because heat is penetrating deeper and deeper into the ocean. More than 90% of heat caused by greenhouse gases is absorbed by the ocean. So that's where the heat goes, right into the ocean. And that is the word for the journal Nature Reviews Earth and Environment. Now, the extra heat is now making the sea levels rise. It is intensifying extreme rain events. It is melting ice and adding energy to cyclones and also changing where the storms form. And it's going to get worse, folks, because the study says no matter what we do now, the ocean's heating will at least double from current levels by the end of the century. At current rates, the amount of energy being added to the ocean each year in the form of heat is equal to, you are not going to believe this, is equal to about 80 times the total global electricity generation. And get this, on average, we have released energy equivalent to around 3.5 Hiroshima atomic bombs into the ocean every second from the period 1971 to 2018. So thankfully it's abating, but folks, we gotta work harder. All right, let's go on to some more on the climate. Alaska's snow, if you like crab, Alaska's snow crabs are disappearing. Billions are now gone. For the first time ever, snow crab season is closed because the numbers of this seafood crashed from 11 billion down all the way to 2 billion in just 4 years, okay? That's a record population decline of more than 80% since 2018. Folks, the climate crisis is thought to be a primary cause of the die-off. Why? Because in 2018, an unusually high snow crab population count coincided with one of the warmest years and periods of the lowest sea on record in the Bering Sea. Also, as the snow crab's cold water territory has shrunk, what did I tell you about the ocean heat? The ocean heat is getting deeper and deeper into the ocean. It's spreading. As the snow crab's cold water territory has shrunk, they have been left exposed to predators. Folks, if you like crabs, come on now. We got to do the job. Let's take a quick look at the diaspora. Are wealthy Russians using a workaround, folks? That's really a Caribbean shortcut to a U.S. visa. This Grenada, it's happening in Grenada. And this Grenada shortcut can take as little as 4 months. It is about 80% cheaper to get your citizenship. Apparently, Russians who invest as little as $150,000 in Grenada's economy can become citizens of Grenada. Now, once they do, they can apply for an E2 visa to the United States. Now, an E2 non-immigrant visa typically lasts for 5 years, but can be renewed an unlimited number of times. Only non-sanctioned Russians are able to apply. Those are your stories, folks. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Thanks for staying with me, but don't go away. You know, I've got your slay word missing. Ask Dr. K, the international report, the financial news, and more. Stay with me. I am Carol Angela Davis with your slay word, folks, so you can level up your vocab and slay it out there in the workforce or the entrepreneurial force or wherever you are. The word this week is vicissitude. Yes, vicissitude, V-I-C-I-S-S-I-T-U-D-E, vicissitude. It is a noun, okay? That means it's a person, place, or thing. Its origin is in the Latin in the early 17th century, and the definition is a change of circumstances over time, especially in one's life. Let's use it in a sentence. No one can escape the vicissitudes of life, and we all must adapt to the changes they bring. Ding dong, Donald Trump, okay? No one is above the law, dear. Your time is coming. Also, second sentence, plants and animals are continually going through states of vicissitude and entering new stages of life. Vicissitude, that's your slay word of the week. It means a change of circumstances over time, especially in one's life. Use it all week and level up your vocab.
Anyone who thinks that slavery ended in the 1860s with the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation are grievously wrong.
If we caught a bird, we ate through the feathers and ate the bird. We didn't have nothing to cook on. We didn't have no stove. You know who you are and who we are.
We're still on that big plantation.
She was bonded to them until they died. She was their slave.
They said, bro, we're going to be killed tonight.
Could that same white dude keep terrorists there, or Russian spies, or the KGB, and the government wouldn't know it? No.
They thought I was beat so bad that I couldn't do nothing, but I did.
Where are you? We are looking for you, Tianda Slater, and with the community's help, we are going to find you. Chicago police say Tianda Slater was 15 years old when she was reported missing from the 1000 block of North Milwaukee Avenue in the Noble Square neighborhood. Slater is 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighs 115 pounds, and has brown hair. She was last seen wearing a black windbreaker, light blue ripped jeans, and black gym shoes. Please call 1-800-THE-LOST, 800-843-5678 with any information about the case of Tianda Slater. Help us find Tianda Slater. We know we can find our missing black girls with the community's help, and we won't stop looking until we find them. We are back with your international report with Dr. Inyang Ebong Harstrup, and she has, of course, taken the pulse of what's going on around the world, bringing you the top stories. Welcome, Edie.
Thank you very much, Carol. Today I want to talk about Brazilian elections again because they're so fascinating. Because Brazil is struggling, like the United States, to tame misinformation. The voters are being bombarded online with all sorts of wild and crazy stories. For example, they're saying that the left-wing candidate Lula da Silva is going to allow men to go to the bathrooms, the public bathrooms next to little girls, and that he's going to close down churches if he's elected. On the right, they're saying that Jair Bolsonaro, so against the right, they're saying that Jair Bolsonaro has admitted to cannibalism and pedophilia. So you can imagine how wild this is. But what is interesting is the route that the Brazilian highest court, their Supreme Court, their version of the Supreme Court, has taken. And basically, what they've done, some people think that it's very heavy-handed and goes against the grain of free speech. But what they've said is that they're banning false or seriously decontextualized content that affects the integrity of the electoral process. You don't have to have a prosecutor requesting, you don't even have to have a complaint, they're going to ban it. And what they're saying in the days leading up to and just after the second round of voting, which is on the 30th of October, social media companies like YouTube and Meta, that's Facebook and Instagram, will be given just 1 hour, which is far less time than before, just 1 hour to clear the content off their sites. And if they do not, they will be charged $28,000 an hour, but as long as that content stays up. And they could possibly be blocked from Brazilian servers. Of course, some are saying that it's too aggressive, but the head of the Supreme Court has said, no, the level of hate speech demands such aggressive action. The right is saying this is unconstitutional, it goes against the grain of free speech. Let's see who will win.
Well, let's hope it's the side that says social media is ruining society because it's about to destroy our democracy. So we got to do something here in the United States. What an interesting report. Thank you so much. Dr. Inyang Ebong Harstrup, she excuse me, brings you your international report every week. And we'll see you next week with more news of what's going on around the world. Thank you, Edie.
Thank you, Carol.
All right, here's your financial news for the week, folks. Judge appointed by Donald Trump in the Fifth Circuit, guess what? They have declared that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is illegal. Oh yeah, folks. Now, let's tell you that the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau is charged with protecting consumers from predatory activity by lenders and other financial institutions. We kind of need that, okay? Financial services. The judges say the Bureau should be stripped of its authority. Oh, they just will not stop with their mess. If the 3 Trump judges' decision stands, folks, it will effectively neutralize much of the federal government's ability to neutralize some of this predatory activity, okay? They will not be able to fight financial fraud, and you know Obama put that in place, so you know we needed it, okay? This bureau protects us from everything from credit cards and car payments to mortgages and student loans. and they're going to make that illegal. They're awful. All right, also today, the federal government needs 30,000 new electric vehicles per year to meet its emission goals. Now, the feds estimate the government is going to require as many as 100,000 charging ports to meet its needs. Lots of jobs, folks. Federally owned and operated charging ports currently stand at about 4,000 across fewer than 500 cities. That's the word from the Government Accountability Office. Now, all federal vehicles have to be emission-free. That has to happen by 2035. Right now, California has more than a quarter of all federally owned charging infrastructure. Nearly half of federally owned charging infrastructure, we should tell you, is owned by the Department of the Navy or the Department of Education. The cost per charging station can range from $1,000 up to $100,000, folks. Gotta have it, though. We gotta get off these fossil fuels. You see what it's doing to your food and everything else, all right? Finally today, guess what? Did you know this? California is poised to overtake Germany as the world's #4 economy. California doesn't play, folks. Those are your stories. Those are your financial stories. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Stay with me.
I'm just sick and tired of us not spending time together lately.
I know, baby. I know. I'm sorry I ain't been spending time with you. I've just been working on this big deal. It's gonna bring a lot more money to the household for it.
What you doing here, boss?
Yeah, just checking to see if you still got it.
You take this work. You partner. I don't want it back.
I've seen the movies, man. I know how this goes.
You see the movie, huh? What you see? Goodfellas, New Jack City.
Everything I do is for you. Like, I just need a little bit more time, man. Fine bullshit. Like I said, he's gonna call any second.
Okay, let me ask you this. Why don't you take a look at this video? Guess what? It's starring you.
We're back at you, and we're closing out the show, and you know why? Because we have to always talk about your health and your well-being, and that's why Dr. Kay Davis is with us. She's a practicing anesthesiologist. Welcome, Dr. Kay.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Still talking about breast cancer, and today we're going to talk about exercise and the importance of preventing breast cancer, preventing a recurrence from breast cancer, and preventing dying from breast cancer. So exercise is very important in our lives. And we do know that 2.5 to 5 hours per week of moderate exercise is enough to, again, prevent, hopefully, the diagnosis, prevent a recurrence, and prevent dying from breast cancer. This is independent of whether it's associated with weight loss. If you're a vigorous exerciser, a minimum of 1.5 to 2.5 hours a week is adequate. Also, vigorous exercise is inflammatory, and therefore one thing that is anti-inflammatory, if you're a vigorous exerciser, is allowing your body to rest and recover in between heavy exercise sessions. Believe it or not, that is also associated with a lower incidence of breast cancer. So ladies, this is October. Let's talk about preventing this terrible disease. Let's talk about preventing a recurrence, even when aggressive forms of breast cancer have been diagnosed. Regular exercise prevents a recurrence, reduces it by as much as 50%. So let's get out there, let's get active, and let's try to maintain our wellness and longevity. Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Kay, one quick question now. If I do my stretching every night and, lifting my granddaughter, is that enough moderate exercise?
Yes, it is. Weightlifting is very important, even moderate weights, stretching, yoga, moderate walking. These are very good forms of exercise, and they're as good as vigorous forms of exercise.
Wow.
So, those are also anti-inflammatory forms of exercise. So they are excellent. Keep active.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Kay. That's why she's here. You know, we got to stay strong, people. We got a lot of things going against us out here. We got to make sure our health is intact. Dr. K, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for tuning in this week and every week on Impact News. From all of us here at Impact News, we wish you a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week.